In 1916, one man employed 3,000 extras, used 7,500 horses, and built a 300-foot-tall set that sprawled across 4 city blocks. This wasn't for a real city, it was for a single movie scene. Welcome to the audacious world of D.W. Griffith's Intolerance, where cinema history was quite literally built from the ground up. D.W. Griffith's early career. David Wark Griffith began his entertainment career as a struggling playwright and actor. In 1908, at the age of 33, he joined the Biograph Company as an actor and scriptwriter. His transition to directing came by chance when the assigned director failed to show up for a shoot. Griffith stepped in, directing his first film, The Adventures of Dolly. From 1908 to 1913, Griffith directed over 450 short films for Biograph. These early works served as a laboratory for his innovative techniques. He experimented with camera movement, using pans and tracking shots to add dynamism to scenes. Griffith also developed the use of the close-up to convey emotion and the use of parallel editing to build suspense. In 1911, Griffith directed The Lonedale Operator, one of the first films to use cross-cutting effectively. This technique allowed him to show simultaneous action in different locations, significantly enhancing his storytelling capabilities. The same year, The Battle showcased his ability to handle large-scale action scenes, a skill that would prove crucial in his later epics. Griffith's innovations extended beyond technical aspects. He was one of the first directors to give actors screen credits, recognizing their importance to the film's success. This practice helped launch the careers of stars like Mary Pickford and Lillian Gish. By 1913, Griffith had outgrown the constraints of short films. He directed Judith of Bethulia, a 4-reel biblical epic that ran for 61 minutes. This was Biograph's first feature-length film and a precursor to Griffith's later historical epics. In 1914, Griffith left Biograph to pursue more ambitious projects. He joined the Mutual Film Corporation, where he had greater creative control and larger budgets. This move set the stage for his most famous and controversial work, The Birth of a Nation. The controversy of The Birth of a Nation. In 1915, D.W. Griffith released The Birth of a Nation, a film that would simultaneously elevate him to the pinnacle of his profession and mire him in intense controversy. Based on the novel The Klansman by Thomas Dixon Jr., the film was a sweeping historical epic set during the American Civil War and Reconstruction era. The production was unprecedented in its scale and ambition. With a running time of over 3 hours, it was the longest American film to date. The budget of $110,000, equivalent to about $2.8 million today, was the largest in American film history at that time. Griffith employed revolutionary filmmaking techniques, including night photography, color tinting for dramatic effect, and orchestral scores to accompany the silent action. Upon its release, The Birth of a Nation was a massive commercial success. It was the first American motion picture to be screened at the White House for President Woodrow Wilson. Wilson allegedly remarked after the screening, "It is like writing history with lightning, and my only regret is that it is all so terribly true." However, the authenticity of this quote has been debated by historians. The film's technical achievements were overshadowed by its deeply problematic content. Its portrayal of African Americans was racist and dehumanizing, while the Ku Klux Klan was depicted as heroic. These elements sparked immediate and intense backlash. Despite the controversy, or perhaps partly because of it, The Birth of a Nation was a financial juggernaut. It was the first American film to gross over $10 million, equivalent to about $250 million today. It played for over 44 weeks in New York alone, with tickets selling for $2, about $50 in today's money, an unheard-of price at the time. Conception of Intolerance. In the wake of the Birth of a Nation controversy, D.W. Griffith began conceptualizing his next project. Initially titled The Mother and the Law, it was a modern story exploring social injustice. However, as Griffith grappled with criticism, the project evolved into something far more ambitious. Griffith's core idea was to demonstrate that intolerance, prejudice, and persecution were universal problems throughout history. To illustrate this, he decided to interweave 4 separate storylines from different periods. 1. The modern story, set in early 20th century America. 2. The Judean story, depicting the life and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. 3. The French story, set during the 16th century St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. The Babylonian story, taking place in 539 BC during the fall of the Babylonian Empire. To finance this enormous undertaking, Griffith invested a significant portion of his personal fortune and secured backing from various sources, including the Triangle Film Corporation. The script development process was unusual. Rather than working from a completed screenplay, Griffith developed the story as filming progressed, collaborating with Todd Browning, Anita Luce, and Frank E. Woods on each storyline. As pre-production began in late 1915, the scale of Griffith's ambition became clear. Intolerance would require thousands of extras, enormous sets, and intricate costumes spanning 4 historical periods. It was poised to be the largest, most expensive film production attempted up to that point in cinema history. Assembling the team. As D.W. Griffith's vision for Intolerance took shape, he began assembling a team of talented professionals. Art director Walter L. Hall, known for his work on The Birth of a Nation, was tasked with designing and overseeing the construction of sets spanning 4 distinct historical periods, including the massive Babylonian set. For cinematography, Griffith turned to his longtime collaborator G.W. Billy Bitzer, who had been instrumental in developing many innovative camera techniques. Given the project's enormous scope, Griffith also brought on Carl Brown as a second cinematographer, promoting him from his previous role as an assistant. The casting process was extensive due to the film's 4 storylines. Mae Marsh and Robert Herron were cast in the modern story, while Constance Talmadge, only 17, was chosen to play the mountain girl in the Babylonian story. Howard Gay's casting as Jesus Christ was considered bold for the time. Griffith also hired thousands of extras for the massive crowd scenes, many recruited from Los Angeles's growing community of aspiring actors and filmmakers. The costume department, led by Claire West, faced the enormous task of creating historically accurate attire for 4 different time periods. Behind the scenes, Griffith assembled a team of writers, including Todd Browning and Anita Luce, to help develop the complex narrative. As the team came together in late 1915, the sheer scale of the project became increasingly apparent. Griffith's vision for Intolerance would require extraordinary dedication and endurance from every member of the cast and crew, setting the stage for one of the most ambitious undertakings in cinema history: building the massive Babylon set. The construction of the Babylon set for Intolerance stands as one of the most ambitious undertakings in silent cinema history. Work began in late 1915 on a lot at the corner of Sunset and Hollywood Boulevards, leased specifically for this purpose. The centerpiece was the enormous Gates of Babylon, standing 100 feet high and 300 feet wide, flanked by towering walls extending nearly 4 city blocks. Atop the gates, Griffith commissioned massive elephant sculptures, each 30 feet high, which became one of the film's most iconic images. Hundreds of craftsmen worked tirelessly for months to bring Griffith's vision to life. The frame was primarily wood, with plaster and paint creating the illusion of stone and marble. Griffith consulted experts on ancient Babylon to ensure historical accuracy, though some creative liberties were taken to enhance the spectacle. Inside the gates, an entire ancient city was constructed, including a replica of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The set featured numerous buildings, streets, and alleys, creating a fully immersive environment. The set's scale posed unique challenges requiring special scaffolding for cinematographers to capture Griffith's envisioned shots. It became a landmark in early Hollywood, visible for miles and drawing curious onlookers. The cost was staggering, estimated between $80,000 to $250,000, equivalent to $2 million today, a significant portion of the film's total budget. Despite this enormous investment, The set was designed to be temporary, adding urgency to the filming process. Innovative filming techniques. D.W. Griffith's ambition for Intolerance extended beyond its massive sets and intertwining storylines. He pushed the boundaries of filmmaking techniques, introducing innovations that would influence cinema for decades. Griffith refined the Hollywood shot, an extreme long shot capturing the full scope of the Babylon set. Using a crane to elevate the camera, he provided a sweeping view of the entire set and thousands of extras, immersing the audience in the ancient world. The director pioneered tracking shots, utilizing a primitive dolly system and even placing a camera on an elevator for a vertical tracking shot. These techniques added dynamism to the film's visual language, enhancing the sense of scale and grandeur. Griffith's use of close-ups was groundbreaking in its frequency and effectiveness. He employed these intimate shots to convey emotion and drive the narrative, particularly in the modern-day storyline, humanizing the epic scale of the film. Perhaps Griffith's most revolutionary contribution was his editing technique. He extensively used cross-cutting between the four storylines, sometimes shifting between time periods with increasing rapidity. This parallel editing tied the disparate narratives together thematically and built tension in unprecedented ways. The film's climactic sequence demonstrated the full power of this editing technique, cutting between all four storylines with increasing speed. This sequence, with up to 14 shots per minute, was an editing tour de force that would influence filmmakers for generations. Griffith also experimented with camera angles to enhance storytelling, using low angles in Babylonian sequences to emphasize scale and high angles in modern sequences to convey vulnerability. For epic battle scenes, he employed multiple cameras simultaneously, providing more options in editing and creating a more dynamic viewing experience. These technical innovations, while time-consuming and expensive, were essential to realizing Griffith's ambitious vision for Intolerance. They set new standards in cinematography and editing, influencing the language of cinema for decades to come. Challenges during production. The production of Intolerance was fraught with challenges that tested D.W. Griffith's leadership and his team's endurance. The project's scale presented unprecedented logistical hurdles for the film industry. Managing thousands of extras was a persistent challenge, particularly in the Babylonian sequences requiring up to 3,000 people on set at once. Assistant directors used flags and megaphones to coordinate these massive crowds, but maintaining consistency across takes proved difficult. The weather became a significant obstacle. Unusually heavy rains in Los Angeles during the winter of 1915-1916 caused delays and damage to the outdoor Babylon set. The wooden framework risked warping or rotting, while the unpaved ground turned to mud, hampering movement. Maintaining the enormous Babylon set was a constant struggle. The towering walls and gates, made largely of wood and plaster, required frequent repairs. The giant elephant statues atop the gates were particularly problematic, needing regular reinforcement against wind and weather. Financial pressures mounted as the budget ballooned from $500,000 to nearly $2 million, an unprecedented sum for the time. Griffith, who had invested much of his own money, faced increasing pressure to complete the film. The physical toll on the cast and crew was significant. Long shooting days, often exceeding 16 hours, led to exhaustion. The elaborate costumes, particularly in the Babylonian sequences, were heavy and uncomfortable under the hot California sun. Reports emerged of extras fainting from heat exhaustion during large crowd scenes. Technical challenges also abounded. Griffith's innovative camera techniques often required multiple takes to perfect, such as the vertical tracking shot using an elevator, which needed precise coordination between various crew members. Despite these myriad challenges, Griffith's unwavering vision and the dedication of his team kept the production moving forward. The difficulties faced during the making of Intolerance would become almost as legendary as the film itself, setting a new standard for what was possible in cinema. The extravagant banquet scene. Set in King Belshazzar's court, it was designed to be the most lavish sequence ever filmed in cinema history up to that point. The set, constructed within the larger Babylon set, occupied an area of 250 by 100 feet. It featured towering columns, ornate decorations, and a raised dais for the king's throne. Every detail was meticulously crafted to authentically represent ancient Babylonian luxury. Griffith spared no expense in populating this grand setting. The scene required over 3,000 extras, each costumed in period-appropriate attire. The costume department, led by Claire West, created unique hand-sewn costumes adorned with beads, jewels, and intricate embroidery. To capture the full scope, Griffith employed multiple cameras simultaneously, some at ground level and others elevated on platforms. This innovative multi-camera approach allowed for a more dynamic and immersive final sequence. The lighting posed significant technical challenges. A combination of arc lights and early electric lights was used to create the illusion of a torch-lit hall. The heat generated made the filming environment intensely uncomfortable, with reports of extras fainting. The cost of this single scene was estimated at over $200,000, equivalent to about $4.7 million today, covering set construction, costumes, extras' wages, props, and technical expenses. Despite the grand spectacle, Griffith ensured that the human drama at the heart of the story was not lost amidst the epic scale. Post-production and editing. As filming on Intolerance concluded in the summer of 1916, D.W. Griffith faced the monumental task of assembling his epic vision. The post-production process was as innovative as the filming itself, pushing the boundaries of film editing in ways that would influence cinema for generations. Griffith took a hands-on approach, working closely with a team of film cutters. The volume of footage was staggering, over 200,000 feet of film, which needed to be cut down to about 12,000 feet. Griffith's editing style was meticulous and time-consuming, often spending hours perfecting single cuts to achieve the right rhythm and flow. To enhance the film's impact, Griffith experimented with tinting techniques, using different color tints to distinguish storylines and set moods. The integration of title cards was carefully considered, with Griffith working closely with writers to craft concise yet poetic intertitles that complemented the visual storytelling. Music played a vital role in Griffith's vision. He commissioned Joseph Carl Bryle to compose an original score, designed to be performed live by an orchestra during screenings. Griffith was deeply involved in this process, ensuring the music enhanced each scene's emotional impact. As the edit progressed, Griffith made difficult decisions to cut entire sequences, including a significant portion of the modern story, prioritizing the film's overall impact. The final stages involved the meticulous creation of film prints for simultaneous release in several major cities. The post-production process stretched on for months, contributing to the film's delayed release and increased budget. However, Griffith's dedication in the editing room was crucial to realizing his ambitious vision. The innovative techniques pioneered in Intolerance would influence filmmakers for decades, cementing the film's place in cinema history. Release and initial reception. After months of anticipation and speculation within the film industry, Intolerance premiered at the Liberty Theater in New York City on September 5, 1916. The premiere was a grand affair befitting the epic scale of the film. Griffith had spared no expense, hiring a 40-piece orchestra to perform the film's score live during the screening. The audience at the premiere was a mix of New York's social elite, film industry professionals, and critics. The reaction was one of awe at the film's technical achievements and epic scale. Many were stunned by the grandeur of the Babylon sequences and the innovative editing techniques that wove together the four storylines. Critical response to Intolerance was largely positive, though somewhat mixed. Many critics praised the film's ambition and technical innovations. The New York Times called it a radical advance in the art of the screen, highlighting Griffith's masterful use of parallel editing. Variety declared it the greatest spectacle ever shown upon a screen. However, some critics found the film's structure confusing and its message heavy-handed. The interweaving of four storylines was unprecedented, and some viewers struggled to follow the narrative. The film's length, over 3 hours, was also a point of contention, with some finding it exhausting. Despite the critical acclaim, the public reception of Intolerance was lukewarm. The film's complex structure and historical subject matter didn't resonate with mainstream audiences in the way that The Birth of a Nation had. Many viewers found the film confusing or overwhelming. The financial performance of Intolerance was disappointing, especially given its enormous budget. While exact figures are difficult to confirm, it's estimated that the film grossed around $1 million during its initial run. This was a significant sum for the time, but far short of what was needed to recoup the film's $2 million budget, equivalent to about $47 million today. The film's underwhelming box office performance had immediate consequences for Griffith. He had invested a significant portion of his personal fortune in the production, and the financial loss was substantial. The Triangle Film Corporation, which had backed the film, also suffered financial setbacks. In an attempt to salvage the film's commercial prospects, Griffith made the unusual decision to release two of the film's storylines as separate features. The Mother and the Law, the modern story, and The Fall of Babylon were released in 1919, with additional footage shot to flesh out the narratives. However, these releases also failed to achieve significant commercial success. Despite its commercial failure, Intolerance had a profound impact on the film industry. Its innovative techniques, particularly in editing and cinematography, influenced filmmakers around the world. Soviet filmmakers like Sergei Eisenstein cited Intolerance as a major influence on their work.